Africa. Africa. When I think about the enormity of the mission Meishu-sama entrusted to you, my heart trembles with hope and excitement. All of us know that Meishu-sama in Japan constructed the three sacred grounds of Hakone, Atami, and Kyoto. Hakone of fire, Atami of water, and Kyoto of soil. This was when Meishu-sama was advancing his divine work mainly in Japan during his lifetime here on earth. But now, as all of you know very well, Meishu-sama advances his work throughout the world, and he now has a new thought about sacred grounds and the role they should play. Needless to say, as I have said it before, all the sacred grounds that have existed until today have been tainted and desecrated by the despicable and cowardly acts of spying and blackmail committed against Kyoshu-sama by Sekai Kyuseikyo. These places are no longer sacred. They are just pieces of land without any connection to Meishu-sama. Taking this issue into consideration, and also seeing that his members now exist in every corner of the world, Meishu-sama now has a new vision of sacred grounds. The sacred grounds of fire, water, and soil are no longer attributed to Hakone, Atami, and Kyoto, but to something much greater, something that encompasses the whole world. That is, the sacred ground of fire is now attributed to Japan, more specifically to the holy sanctuary of the Messiah that World Church of Messiah will construct. Meishu-sama has already determined the place for the sacred ground of water, but the time is not yet ripe for me to specify the place today. And third, the sacred ground of soil is now attributed to Africa, more specifically to the sacred ground that the African members will construct in the Holy Land of Angola. Before, it was Hakone, Atami, and Kyoto. Today, in this global age, it is Japan, a place I am not allowed to say yet, and Africa. Japan, the sacred ground of fire, and Africa, the sacred ground of soil. Africa is our motherland, right? It is the cradle of humanity. What place is better than Africa to be the sacred ground representing soil? It is just so fitting that Africa be the sacred ground of soil. And what is the role that the sacred ground of soil, the African sacred ground, should play? What is soil, then? Meishu-sama wrote the following. What you should know is the true significance of soil. When God the Creator prepared human beings a long time ago, He also created something that would produce enough food to sustain all human beings on earth. This something is soil. Meishu-sama is saying that the role of soil is to produce food to sustain human beings on earth. Naturally then, the role that the sacred ground of soil, that is the African sacred grounds, is to play should correspond to this will of Meishu-sama, this will of God. As I told you in my previous message, Meishu-sama taught us that when the ideal world comes, that is, when a paradise on earth is established, all of humanity will practice a vegan diet. He said that all of humanity will follow a vegan diet in the world of Miroku. By the way, in my last message, I used the phrase strict vegetarian diet. But actually, vegetarian or vegetarian diet is an ambiguous term, so I wish to avoid using it from now on. When using the Japanese term saishoku, Meishu-sama is essentially referring to a vegan diet. So the term vegan diet is more appropriate when describing the diet of the world of Miroku. What I'm trying to say is that Africa, the sacred ground of soil, should be the place to put forth great effort into the practice of Meishu-sama's nature farming. In this way, Africa could not only correspond to the will of Meishu-sama when he says that all people in the world will one day follow a vegan diet, but it could also produce a great amount of food to feed humanity. Yes, that's right. People of the world might have the image that Africa is poor, that African people suffer from hunger, and that Africa needs help. But Africa should and must prove them wrong. More than proving them wrong, Africa must practice nature farming on the greatest scale possible. And rather than being fed, it should play the role of feeding the African people. No, feeding all of humanity to fulfill its role as the sacred ground of soil. The African sacred grounds of World Church of Messiah must turn into a place that epitomizes this role that has been assigned by God and Meishu-sama to all of you, the African people. I know there will be a lot of difficulties ahead. I know there will be times when you think that it is impossible to practice nature farming in Africa where there are many dry lands. But I am certain that God and Meishu-sama will provide you with divine wisdom and assistance to overcome these difficulties and hardships. The time has come for all of you, the African members, to fulfill the role Meishu-sama assigned to you. Go and start practicing nature farming to produce grains like corn. Grow vegetables, root vegetables, legumes, every kind of produce that can be harvested in your land. Let World Church of Messiah in Africa lead other churches around the world in the practice of nature farming and a vegan diet. Let World Church of Messiah in Africa lead the world in the efforts of constructing a world of Miroku, a paradise on earth. I say go on and start projects that even encourage people outside of our church to practice nature farming and a vegan diet. The world thinks that Africa is always influenced by outside forces. Let us prove it wrong. Just to be clear, I am not saying that we have to deny medical science like we did before, nor am I giving any medical advice here. If you have concerns about your health, you should always consult a doctor and listen to the advice. What I'm talking about now is something much greater. It is about faith, about the mission Africa carries, and about the future of humanity. Africa, the sacred ground of soil. I believe the expectation Meishu-sama has of you, the people in Africa, is immense. By following the diet of the world of Miroku and by practicing nature farming, that is, by practicing a farming method proposed by Meishu-sama that prohibits the use of any type of chemical, pesticide or fertilizer, including animal manure, and only allows the use of simple and natural forms of compost, members in Africa will become the models for all other members in the world to follow. When I talk about food, I talk about it not only for us to correspond to the sacred word of Meishu-sama regarding the diet in the world of Miroku, but also to correspond to the will of Meishu-sama who taught us the importance of nature farming. I strongly wish to correspond to these wills of Meishu-sama together with the African members and together with members all around the world. To those who are not in Africa, To those who are in Brazil, Portugal, the United States, Japan, Korea, Bolivia, Australia, the United Kingdom, and so forth, I encourage all of you to follow the example of Africa so that we can be worthy of being regarded as residents of the world of Miroku. To all of you who are in Africa, let us practice nature farming like never before. Let us produce food through nature farming. Let us correspond to the will of Meishu-sama. And with our own hands, let us create a bright and glorious future for all of humanity. I believe it is in this way that you, the African members, will be able to fulfill the mission Meishu-sama has entrusted to you. You who live on the sacred ground of soil, that is, in Africa.